Hello everyone, my name is Efwa Elens Ede with Social Impact Consulting. I'm a development consultant with 20 years of experience working with NGOs, international NGOs, and bilateral agencies to work in project support, monitoring and evaluation, and civil society strengthening. So now, I saw that local NGOs lack the capacity to manage large-scale projects, which can in turn impact their various communities because they have the connection based on their backgrounds. So this made me create this channel so that I can add value to you for free once you subscribe to this channel and get notified of upcoming videos. I look forward to hearing from you. Hello everyone, how you doing today? Welcome to another episode of the Development Sector Series, which is Devsectorseries. You are live here with Efwa with Social Impact Consulting. We're a development consultancy firm that looks to maximize social impact. We consider ourselves a connector between civil society and the development sector and the public. There was an interview I conducted with Dr. Kule Shetima that talked about the MacArthur Foundation's theory of change, that when government, private sector, and civil society works together, then we now have national development. So thank you so much again for joining us here at the Development Sector Series, which is Dev Sector Series. So please like and share this broadcast so that we can get to a lot more people. Just click on your buttons, like and share, like and share. Also, we're having our social impact masterclass. The website is finally ready. I've been working with these tech guys for quite a bit. There were a few bugs, but finally it is ready. So if you're interested in the social impact masterclass and being on the waiting list, make sure you click on the link in this very description. One more thing. If you're interested in sponsoring an episode of Dev Sector Series, my WhatsApp number is here on this link in the description. Join us so that we can continue to work on this, promote this content, and work on this content and give you more quality. So thank you so much for being such a fan. So now we are going to get to our interview. I have an extremely special guest today. Her name is Dr. Uduak Akpan. She is the executive director of the Youth Alive Foundation. And she has been a voice along with her team on addressing sexual and gender-based violence in Nigeria, alongside her other initiatives addressing youth advocacy and youth development. So we are going to be talking about addressing gender-based violence in Nigeria. So before I bring her up, I am just going to share with you her video bio, okay? Again, thank you for watching, and please ensure that you like and share, okay? So we're gonna pull this up right now for you guys. Dr. Uduak Akpan is an ICT for development researcher, training consultant, and development practitioner with over 15 years of experience in the development sector. She's an individual with knowledge and experience in sexual and gender-based violence, psychosocial support, case management, and related activities. She led the advocacy for the passage of the Anti-Sexual Harassment in Tertiary Institutions and also pioneered an online service provision network for increasing numbers of survivors of violence during the COVID-19 lockdown in Nigeria. In 2002, she co-founded the Youth Alive Foundation in Nigeria, a youth-focused nonprofit aimed at empowering Nigerian youth to knowledge creation and ICT skills development. She is currently the Executive Director and has been a driver of the Akwa Ibom Youth Development Fund Advocacy Campaign, Your Excellency Civic Gaming App, YPAC, a youth initiative addressing anti-corruption, MAD Act, NOSHISHABRIBE, and a member of the multinational working group on the Council for the Development of Social Science Research in Africa on Africa in the Information Society Era. She has a PhD in ICT for Development from the University of London and an MSc from the London School of Economics. She has worked as a consultant with international development agencies such as the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank, and UNICEF on youth development, capacity building, and impact evaluation projects. Her expertise on ICTs for development in Africa and specializing in youth development in community informatics and gender-based violence has made her a force to be reckoned with in the development sector in Nigeria and Africa at large. Allow me to introduce to some and present to others Dr. Uduak Akpan, the Executive Director of the Youth Alive Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Akpan. Thank you so much for joining us.
So much.
Sorry, can you say that again? I just unmuted you.
Okay. I said I'm humbled by the introduction. That's great accolades you bestowed on me. Thank you so much. It's great to be here, and I'm looking forward to having a great conversation.
Thank you so much, Dr. Akpan. So it looks like you have been quite busy on various projects with the Youth Alive Foundation. But one of the things that we're just going to be highlighting is the great work that you and your team have been working on with sexual and gender-based violence. So so tell me, how did you guys decide to, I mean, you all have been working on youth, and which is a great thematic area, but you know, it's a very vast thematic area, and gender-based violence is also part of it as well. So what led you all to get into that area? What was the inspiration behind that?
When you work with women, young women and girls, because we work in secondary schools, we work in tertiary institutions, we work with youth corps members, we work with a whole variety of young people. Over the years, one of the things that was constantly coming up was the issue of sexual harassment, sexual violence. And although we stayed away from doing anything about gender-based violence for quite a few years, but when the rate of sexual harassment and abuse in tertiary institutions escalated to astronomical proportions, we had to rejig our strategic plan and say, if we're talking about youth development, it's a holistic thing. So you might be working on addressing skills, on unemployment, leadership development, and other things. But really, if you don't address gender-based violence, then you cannot really have young women and girls who are growing up with a balanced, who are whole, to even benefit from the other projects and programs that you had. So it was something that we couldn't ignore. We were getting lots of calls. And so we started working on sexual harassment and abuse in schools, secondary schools, universities. We've even been called into a primary school by a primary school principal where an 8-year-old girl was being abused. So, and that led us into this sector, this field
I see.
of gender-based violence. And you know how it is, you start and then you learn new things and then you learn new things. And then it becomes a passion that we have to do something. This is serious, this is important. And so we worked with the office of the vice president of the Senate to support them to pass this bill, this sexual harassment bill. because we think it's important to keep lecturers in check. People or in authority who are supposed to look out for students shouldn't be abusing them, and there are punitive clauses in that policy. And so that's how we got into it, basically.
And that is really interesting. So you've told us how you've gotten started. What was the response to your interventions? How did the public respond to you and the team?
Um, Public, very supportive.
Mm-hmm.
You see, there are different groups of people, right? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so you have the public, then you have the survivors themselves, and then you have the perpetrators. Obviously, we went for the public hearing for the sexual harassment bill. The Association of Lecturers in Universities, they were against it. They said it
I
was unnecessary.
see.
They were
I
so
see.
if you belong to a perpetrator group, obviously you are not going to welcome issues like this.
Mm-hmm.
But the survivors came and told us a lot of stories. Although many of them didn't want to do that publicly, they welcomed it and they gave us a lot of information to propel what we're doing. And I think the public as a whole, Nigeria is becoming more conscious that is an issue. So I think the public was supportive, but I think the greatest support came from the survivors themselves.
I see. I see. Interesting. So, and as with the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, uh, SGBV became rampant globally. So, just give us a sense on how you all played a role in addressing this issue.
Okay, when the lockdown happened, and when it happened when we're still working on gender-based violence and working on those issues, and then I started seeing media reports about women who are experiencing increased violence, about and they can't go out for help. They can't go to the police. They can't go anywhere because they're on lockdown, and they are locked down with their perpetrators. So if you are a woman that is married to an abusive man, and he has a hectic job, he goes to work at maybe like 7 in the morning and comes back about 7, 8 in the evening. So you only have like 3 or 4 hours to spend with him before if you can manage to
Work.
the peace within 3 or 4 hours. But when you are locked down day after day with an abuser, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. So I talked to my team. I said, look, yes, we cannot move around. Yes, we cannot do a lot, but we can provide support. And if it's an emergency response, we can actually move, according to what the government said. So we formed a network of online support, and we brought multiple stakeholders together. We brought counselors, we brought NGOs working on gender-based violence, we brought in FIDA. FIDA is doing great work on gender-based violence. We brought in gender unit of the police force. We brought in Medical Women's Association. We brought in Female Journalists Association. We brought in quite a few stakeholders who were interested in this. It's still online and it's still functional. And we're able to respond. We had put out our phone numbers and say we're available this time when you're in lockdown. If you can talk, text us or call us, and we'll provide support. And we actually did provide a lot of support. So a lot of women, but not only women, to young children. Once we put that, we're targeting girls, young girls, we're targeting young women or even mature women. But when we actually started, we found that people were calling us for children who were being abused. And so even
Really?
majority of cases are children, yes, that we had to step in. Um, there's one example of a girl that is deaf and dumb. She's just about 11, 12. I was being abused by her oga and her uncle. He's an uncle, but she was there serving as a maid.
I
And her
see.
parents were jealous. And she's deaf and dumb. And a neighbor called us. So people started calling us about cases they had seen, and it was mostly children. And so we were able to provide that support during the lockdown. And I think it was very successful. And women had a place to call if they needed help. And I spoke to quite a lot of women that did not want us to do anything. They just wanted to talk.
Mm.
Yeah.
They just wanted to talk. Wow.
Yeah, they just wanted to talk. and then you'd counsel them and you teach them the escalation techniques. What triggers you? You tell them what triggers is anger. How can you de-escalate? How do you avoid these triggers and stuff like that? So it was, I think it was very useful to have that during the lockdown.
Okay. So I think you already touched on this question that I'm about to ask in terms of the stakeholders that you all brought together to address GBV in the COVID-19 group. So how has it been able to stay as long as as it has been? Because you started this pre-COVID-19, and then during COVID-19, brought more people together. So how have you been able to bring cohesion? Because you have these stakeholders. If you don't manage it, it won't work. So how have you been able to do it, and how have you been able to keep the momentum going?
Actually, we didn't do too much. The people that were in the network were people that were
Mhm.
interested, that had a passion.
Okay.
So
Okay.
once the lockdown was lifted, we
Hmm.
had more physical engagements where
I
people would
see.
just call us and we could go physically and take them. And then because the lockdown was lifted, organizations like FIDA, they have
Hmm.
homes, they have places where women could go to. We have some medical services. There's some USAID supported medical clinics for women. And so we could actually physically take them there. So now we do some work online, but now we're also doing more offline as well. And during the lockdown, it was all online. And then when necessary was an emergency, they would go. Like the girl I told you about, we had to get the police to go there to rescue that girl. Now she's safely back with her parents in Jos. And that was an emergency. Yeah. So if it's not an emergency, then we take this offline, and
Okay.
then we work with FIDA and some
Hmm.
other stakeholders. And the
Okay.
media people have been very good in the group. They bring a lot of information. They are a major source of information that this is what is happening here, this is what is happening here. Can you guys do something about it? And that's just to show you that every stakeholder is important. There's a broad spectrum of stakeholders.
Okay.
Even those in government, you have NAPTIP, Women Affairs, police, judges, the judiciary, because somebody has to enforce the laws. We have the Violence Against Persons Prohibitions Act. And so all of them are stakeholders. The gender unit of the police force, do they have the capacity? Are they doing what they received a lot of training from lots of NGOs, but there's a broad spectrum. So you're looking at both the personal support survivors need, which NGOs are doing. You're looking at sanctions. You're looking at enforcement. You're looking at implementation of legislation. Like LACVAL, this Legislative Action Committee on Violence Against Women. They are working to ensure that VAP is implemented. So there's a broad spectrum of stakeholders working in the field. And we need to work together to make it work. And that's why we don't do anything on gender without um, a variety of stakeholders, because it's such a big challenge and it will be
Hmm.
difficult to achieve
Oh,
meaningful impact without other stakeholders being involved.
interesting. So you said that a lot of the cases are from information about minors, not even, and then the
Yes.
women that are even at home, they actually just need counseling and techniques to manage their situation. So so you've talked about various stakeholders. So I'm going to go specific now and talk about civil society. So how has civil society been crucial in addressing this issue in Nigeria to date?
They've done a lot. I mean, we wouldn't even be where we are without civil society. I mean, what government is doing now is because civil society pushed them. You have organizations like RAPA and Co that were working for 14 years to get the Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act passed with a variety of other NGOs. This is the reason why we have a law, NGOs. And they did, imagine 14 years advocating, pushing, reviewing, rewriting, representing a law to protect women. Government did just sit down and come up with a law. Government did sit down and come up with a law. NGOs push them to have a law. So NGOs are critical and crucial partners in addressing gender-based violence. I mean, they've done
Mm.
a lot.
Yeah.
There are lots of
And
network.
even trying
Mm,
to even implement the law and localize it in states
yes,
is
yes,
another set of engagements that civil
yes,
society needs to
yeah.
get involved. Yeah, definitely. So now we've talked about civil society. Now let's talk about what the Nigerian before I continue. Please, if you have any questions for Dr. Akpan about addressing gender-based violence in Nigeria, please put your questions down. I have a question already from LinkedIn by Mr. Kingsley Udo. Thank you again for watching and engaging with us, and Mr. Greg Inaholo. In terms of, so if anybody has any questions about the issue of gender-based violence, it's a huge issue, which we need to cover. Please put it in the comment section so that we can continue to have an engaging discussion. So we've talked about civil society. We've talked about even how YAP has started getting involved based on feedback from stakeholders, from your beneficiaries about the need for young girls to be more involved as youth. So now we're talking about the Nigerian government. Are they doing enough? And what more can they do to reduce the rate of GBV in Nigeria?
I think they are trying. I
Mhm.
mean, if you look at where we were 10 years ago in terms of government intervention and where we are now, it's a big difference. They're actively trying to make a difference. They are more open to working with NGOs now. So I've been to quite a few meetings and programs with government agencies around gender-based violence, and they're seeking information. There is a national VAP Acts coordinator. NAPTIP is really the one spearheading under the Ministry of Women Affairs. Um, they have set up a variety. They now have a register of service providers. They have they have assessments and monitoring and evaluation of what is happening every year. They have an annual report. There's quite a bit that they're doing now. They could do more, but I think they're trying. I think what government needs to do is more partnership with other ministries. I was happy the last one went for an event, the Ministry of Women Affairs, and they were partnering with the Ministry of Finance, and Finance is saying that they're trying to ensure that there's budget appropriation for implementation of laws for addressing gender-based violence issues. And the Minister of Youth was there, the Minister of Finance, the Minister of Women Affairs. So they need to do a bit more collaborations, because if we're talking of implementation costs money. The
Mm.
police need to be equipped. They need to be trained. Um, there should be money for investigations. There should be. So who does appropriations? So you look at all the stakeholders involved, the budget office, the Ministry of Finance, and all of those. So I think there needs to be more coming together around this. I know the Office of the Vice President is doing a lot as well around gender-based violence. So I think there should just be more cohesion around what government is doing. But I think they're trying compared to where we were like some years back. I think government is doing quite a bit.
So, you were advocating with the Vice President of the Senate on a bill for addressing sex for grades. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Okay, so the the Deputy Senate President is a really special man because he's passionate about gender-based violence. And you know,
Mm,
when you as an individual in government is passionate, you carry it. He
mm,
first presented this bill, is
mhm,
it like 2015? He
mhm.
was passed by the Senate and it just didn't fly again.
Wow.
And then he was not a deputy Senate president. Now he became a deputy Senate president and represented it again, you know. And now he had more clout and he had more support of the whole Senate. And so the bill has passed. Now, the concurrence from the House of Reps is what was ongoing that was delaying. But technically, the bill has passed, and I think with the position that he is and the support from a lot of civil society organizations, um, the president is signing it into law. So it's come a long way, and we're happy to have been a part of that. Um, we've mobilized civil society to join to advocate for the passage of this bill. We've had a policy dialogue with different stakeholders, a lot of stakeholders from government, civil society, and the DSP. It was there. The Deputy Senate President was there um, himself to answer questions about the bill, and he received feedback on how the bill could be improved upon. Um, so we're happy that that bill passed, and
Okay, so
this is something.
what were some of the key provisions of the bill that um made you want to partner? Because you know there are some bills out there that you say, okay,
Hmm,
it sounds good, but it's a bunch of fluff. But what were
hmm.
some of the provisions there that made that aligned with YAS priorities that made you all advocate for
Okay,
them?
some people at that point, some people felt it was a narrow bill because it targeted
Mhm,
tertiary institutions. But
mhm,
even though it targeted tertiary institutions, it was very detailed about punitive measures.
mhm,
And the bill specified that the fiduciary relationship between a lecturer and the student cannot be abused. And they specified what were the types of abuse that could be given. And they specified punitive measures, prison time, even for the abuse of that relationship, fiduciary relationship between the two. It was very specific about what is to be done, what that relationship means. So that what it means is that, and what is special about that bill is that you know how when you're a minor, you are like under 18, you can decide to have a sexual relationship with a man, but the
mhm.
law says is rape.
Yeah.
So even though the girl is not saying is rape, that she's underage, they mean that she has not attained the maturity to make that decision for herself.
Mhm, mhm.
So in this bill, it has that as well.
Okay.
That it's not about you raping the girl or not raping the girl. That they are
Mhm.
seeing it that relationship should not be abused. And they are treating it like that law.
I
That
see.
when you are a student, because of the power relations, because some students actually go ahead and do this themselves, but you have to think about the power relations involved. You don't want to fail, so you do it. So this law actually says even if she accepted to do it, that relationship has been abused and is punitive. And I
I
think that's
see.
what's really struck me about that. It's about
Mm,
protecting that relationship. And
I see.
I like that. I like that about the bill.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So now we've talked about various stakeholders. Now I want to highlight us as citizens. You get what I'm saying? How
Mhm.
do we address the issue of gender-based violence in Nigeria, and how do we what role do we play?
I don't know if you've heard about this programming strategy around violence. Like mostly in America, it was on campuses, and
Hmm.
it's called the bystander approach.
Okay.
And the idea around that is that violence happens to one person, but it's the responsibility of all.
Okay.
So if you see or suspect that this
Mhm.
person is about to be at risk, do something, say something. And so they also advocate that this idea of body relationship, where you see somebody might be vulnerable because of where they're going, they shouldn't go alone. So that is in place. That program is there in a lot of campuses in the US. But I think for citizens in Nigeria, we need to adopt that bystander approach. Why would you keep quiet? I don't keep quiet. If I see somebody being abused, I'll park my car and get out of my car. and say, why are you doing this? I don't
Mhm.
mind my business when it comes to gender-based violence. And I think citizens shouldn't mind their business when it comes to gender-based violence. If you see a child being abused, to say something. Most of the reports we got that we rescued children came from neighbors and family friends. That's what citizens should do. It's not only about saying violence is not good, say no to violence and carry placard. What are you doing? Because when we think about it, in and around us somewhere, people are seeing evidence of violence. They are seeing a girl being abused. I've been in a situation where I see a girl looking concerned, trouble, and I take them aside and say, "Are you okay? Are you okay in this house? What is happening?" I think citizens need to be more engaged. Make it your business. It's not busybody when a woman is being abused. Make it your business to say something and to do something. At the very least, report, even if you don't want to get yourself involved in that situation, at the very least, report to an authority that can do something. Like those people that called us, a lot of them will say, don't let them know it's me or they're my neighbors, I live with them, or that kind of thing. But they reported and we went after it. So it's
I see.
important for citizens to do something, say something. And already, I think if you even look on social media, you'll see that a lot of citizens are, and they have increased intolerance for gender-based violence. They always say no, no. I think we can take it a step further and do something about it when we see it or when we suspect it. There's nothing wrong with reporting it and let them investigate. If it's real, fine. If it's not, then I think that's what citizens should do.
Okay. Thank you so much for that feedback. I have a question from an audience member here. She says it's Nsomi Ngende from Cameroon. She says we're having cases of sex for marks in the University of Bue in southwest Cameroon. The school recently published names of lecturers for the first time, and it felt strange to a lot of people. What were your strategies in getting the community or society to understand that naming and shaming perpetrators is not a crime or against the norm or culture of our people?
The most effective method.
Mm,
I mean, it sounds bad, but it's naming and shaming. Do you remember that when the BBC series documentary was published,
mm,
which came out actually about 2 years after we had been advocating for against sex for grades in tertiary institution, there was a huge drop in cases in universities. Even
mm,
now, we have been visited in surveys. The lecturers are afraid. They don't want
mm,
video. They don't want
mm,
they don't want to risk, because some of those lecturers have lost their jobs. Their careers have been destroyed. One of them was even a pastor. He was rejected from even his church. So now these lecturers, it's not as bad as it used to be. And
mm,
it's because of naming and shaming. There's some things that need to be brought to the light. There's some things that need to be brought to the light to make an impact. Because there's nothing like an example of one perpetrator
mm.
discouraging others.
Nice, yeah.
And I know that in the African culture, which I know I have lots of Cameroon friends as well, it's the same thing. We don't want to speak about these things. Even when one of the problems, okay, so one of the problems that we have in the cases we attended to, we take it to police, we take it to FIDA, the families come and pull the case.
Mm,
The family. Let's not bring this to the public. It's the African mentality around what is appropriate for to be said about women in the public space.
I
And it
see.
is wrong. We have to change it. So shaming perpetrators is not a crime. It is not, Usomi, because it's very effective. It's even more effective than quiet court cases that nobody hears about. That is why, in addressing sexual based violence, the media must be your friend. They
Mm,
must be your friend. Investigative journalism is key. Naming and shaming would discourage. In Nigeria, ask a lot of students, it has reduced greatly. You hear lecturers, I've spoken to a few that say, lecturers say, you people come and be filming me now. You go and put me on. So it's reduced because it became topic of national discourse, and a few people, quite a few public cases came to light, and everybody's now thinking of their career. I can't risk my career just because I want to sleep with a young girl. So it's reduced. So I think it's really effective, and it's not a crime. It's not against the culture of our people. It is.
So how do we? So how do we? Let's like you said before, like families will pull out cases and different things. How do we change how do we build attitudinal change towards that people don't look at it as, oh, this is not the norm. Like you said, it should be the norm so that perpetrators can be put to book. How do we change that mindset?
With things, with mindset change and behavior change, this is always a long-term thing.
Yeah, it is.
It's something that you need to amplify the volume, meaning that a large number of people have to be saying it and saying it consistently and frequently. So if it's very frustrating, but we can't do anything about it. I have quite a few cases. Oh, the guy's family came and begged us, please, 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 and the embarrassment, and this, that. Or the girl will say, I hope I won't speak in court. Hope they won't do this and do that. There are many cases but I can't help you if you don't want to be helped. I can't force them. The family will say the next thing they are warning their child, or don't talk to these people again. Yeah, they want to disgrace the family. It's time. I think more people need to say it is okay to report crime so that it will stop.
Yeah.
So we need to speak out more, and it's a slow process, but I think we need to amplify the volume and the numbers of people who are speaking and saying these people who do this must be prosecuted. And when that becomes a familiar thing they hear every day, then behavior change can happen. There are stages in behavior change. There are like 5 stages. And something that is going to change overnight. But the very like what Usomi was asking, is very important what the school has done. Publishing a list of lecturers. Oh my God. The impact, she'll feel the impact. The impact, you feel the impact. Because it makes a difference. It makes a difference. And you could be one of the people talking to others and put together a group of people in school, say it is okay to speak about this. It is okay to report. Many people don't report. They don't.
You're definitely right about that. I have another question by Kingsley Udo. He said here, he actually said he and his entire team are watching this. So that's why the question was from his intern, and now this is from him. He's the emergency response manager, Street Child Cameroon. He says, what role does understanding powers, privileges, and bias play in victim support and protection in the case of SGBV?
Oh, Kingsley Udo, hi. You asked a very important question. Gender-based violence is about power. It's about inequality. It's about that. So when we talk about gender-based violence, we're not just talking about men beating women or raping women. We're talking about the unequal power relations that make women vulnerable to those situations. And because of that gender equality and unequal power relations, where in Africa, for example, it's acceptable. Women are looked down as, or should I say, men are viewed as superior to women. I'm trying to say this in a nice way. And women are like appendages to men. And in some places, men is a man's world. I don't know how many times I hear it from Africa. It's a man's world. It's a man's world. So women are just like guests in this world. It's not our space. So they have all the authority and they have all the power. And so gender-based violence, I keep telling people, is about power. A lecturer on the streets that is not the lecturer of that student and they meet in town somewhere
Mhm.
cannot come and meet her and harass her or even try to rape her because he has no power over her. I'll give you a very, very basic explanation of what power is.
Mhm.
Now, being in the university and the girl is his student, he has power. He can fail her. He can make her do an extra year, an extra term. He has leverage. And because he has that, and because the society we live in sometimes don't protect women and girls enough, and because they have this old boys club in the university where other lecturers support, they support each other. There are situations where they would fail you and tell their colleagues to fail you. So
Mm.
it's about power. If you met that girl on the street, you couldn't say that to her. You have no power over her. So I always say gender-based violence is about power. You that you are married and your husband is abusing you every day, is the breadwinner, is it's about power. So this what you ask is a very crucial question. We need to understand that these powers, privileges, and bias, like you said, bias, I would say the way the way we women are programmed to be in Africa, for example. Because
Mhm.
from birth, I was doing an interview on AIT and they were asking me about women empowerment. I said, look, the problem with us is that we have been programmed from birth. From the time you are born, as a woman in Africa, you are programmed to behave in a certain way. You are
Yeah.
programmed to, even me with all my exposure where I've schooled abroad and everything, sometimes that code speaks. There's a there's a code. And there's a code in you. And you've been programmed from when you are young that girls behave this way, boys behave this way. It's a girl's duty to do this. Girls don't speak out. It's for boys to speak out in public. Girls conduct themselves good in public. Guys don't. Guys can say anything they want to do. You see parents, they'll see their young sons with girls on the streets. The father will say, "That's my boy," but with the fact that they can
Mm.
beat her up. So you grow up knowing that some things are allowed for men and they're not allowed for me. There's some things I gave an example in the night interview when I was doing my PhD research and I went somewhere in River State to do focus group. And initially I put the men and women together because we're trying to talk about community, how we can improve community. And the women were quiet. And I decided to separate them. So I had youths, women, and men separately. These same women, when I had focus group with them, they were the best focus group. Among men, we're talking about community
Wow.
hall. These men were talking about important issues like training, development for the youths, creation of jobs, abuse of the environment, the waters
Mhm.
being polluted by shell. They were talking real things. But because they are not allowed to speak where the men are, they couldn't articulate their thoughts. So we're programmed in that way. And that bias exists. And it exists and it shows up in the courts, it shows up in the police. When you as a woman go to the police and say, my husband beats me, a lot of time you face ridicule.
Yeah.
So this is a family matter. Why are you bringing this matter to the police? So this bias, this code and everything, and how women are perceived, this this unequal relations with women, power relations with women, people don't. It affects how people respond to gender-based violence, and these are the issues we need to talk about. A man has beaten his wife almost to death. Don't tell them it's a domestic issue. They should go and settle it at home.
Exactly.
Prosecute the man. But because of that, our bias, cultural biases, it affects so many things in addressing gender-based violence. So in a way, we need to, Kingsley, we need to address the issue of power, the issue of cultural biases and privilege in terms of supporting people. Because women them, so that therefore means that you need to empower the women in their mind and not just talk about empower with body. Because until a woman knows that I'm not a victim, I'm not allowed to take this, I have rights, then she cannot fight for her rights. So in providing victim support, survivor support, it's crucial that they understand that you're a woman doesn't make you less than a man. You're a woman
Mhm.
doesn't mean they are entitled to abuse you. You're a woman means that you have rights. See what the law says. See what even international laws. It's not acceptable. Don't take this. So there's a lot of work to be done on not just addressing the gender-based violence, but the survivors and the victims, because we have taken it and we are operating from a weakened position where we cannot even stand up to fight for our rights. And for example, what people don't know is that emotional abuse is even more crippling than physical abuse.
It is.
It can make a woman wither and crumble and cannot even hold her head up in public. So, in providing support to victims or to survivors, I prefer to call them survivors and not victims, because is to empower them to say, you don't have to take this. You can do something about this. This is your right as a woman. This is your right as the law states it. This thing that you think is a cultural bias, and it's not right. And then we need more survivors speaking out. It's about representation. If you have somebody who is walking the line you're working, who has been through what you've been through, and who has overcome and has been liberated and has been empowered, there's nothing more powerful than that.
At
And that's
all.
why survivors need more representation. Survivors who are past it and living successful lives need to talk about what they've gone through, need to encourage victims and survivors who are actually still going through what they're going through. So I think that's what is important. It's very important. So I totally agree with you that power, privilege, and bias, cultural bias, play a role, and it should be something that we should factor in as we support survivors of sexual violence.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for that answer. I'm going to take one more question, but this is kind of more of your technical how to get into the sector. So this is so he said, question, what would you say to someone who has a passion for developmental pursuits but doesn't feel qualified? What steps can one take to get such qualifications?
The first thing is you have passion. That's very
Mhm.
important. When you say developmental pursuits, you have to zero it down. What particular aspects of development? It's so broad. Are you interested in orphans and vulnerable children? Are you interested in out of school children? Are you interested in women? Are you interested in economic government accountability? What area are you passionate? People usually, everybody that has a passion for development work always have um, a focus. I mean, from as far as long as I can remember, I've always been interested in youth. I still love youths. They're my best demographic of people. I love to talk to youth. I find it very easy to engage with them. I'm interested because at that point in their life, they're shaping their world. And if we can come in and make impact, I think is really useful. But some people are passionate. I have a young lady that I've been mentoring and supporting in Akwa Ibom. Every time she sees me, she says, "Oh, that she just sees children on the streets, or she sees children behaving anyhow. She's so burdened. She has a passion. All these girls and boys, teenagers, these days she just feels that they're getting direction." So I told her, well, if you're interested, then start talking to them. Go to schools, start a program, and she's doing well. She has an organization now just for teens. They go to school, they teach. So first, pick out what you're passionate about. Developmental pursuits. Pick one and zero in. When you pick one and zero in, then you study what other people go online. Everything is on the internet. Study in this area. So, for example, if you are picking, let's say, HIV/AIDS, or let's say something else, I don't know, go online and find out what are people doing in this area, what are the current programming, where are we at, what should be done. Then attend events. It's very important. That's where you network. Attend events. Even if you're not registered your NGO, you're not registered, attend events. Find out how you can begin to develop a strategy, because without that knowledge you cannot really develop a strategy about what you want to do. Attend events in that specific sector that you're interested in. and then just come up with what area you want to work on, and then articulate that on paper. Write your vision. Your vision is, what would you like to be the end result of this? What future would you like to see as a result of the work you're doing? You would like to do your mission. How do you want to make this happen? And then you write like objectives. You know, this is one, two, three. So let me make that more concrete than just talking. Okay, so for example, if you want to teach young people skills, um, so your vision might be, oh, so that a world where young people are engaged and employed. Your mission is that you want to do this by skills training, getting them seed funding, blah blah blah. And then your one, two, three might be, okay, train young youth corps members that are just come graduating in certain skills, train entrepreneurs that are not that in rural areas in certain skills, young entrepreneurs, so they can do this. These are objectives. So, but you need to know more about the sector and what is there. And so, the first thing will be to acquire knowledge. I'd say search, Google, research, and then when you know more, then try and write on paper what you want to do. Articulating thoughts in a in a way that makes sense on paper helps, and then you can now start thinking. I would say volunteer in an
Yeah,
organization.
very
Go
important. Yeah.
that field. That's the first thing you should do. Whatever thing you're interested in, go and volunteer. There's no NGO. There are many NGOs that will take a volunteer if they're not going to be paying you salary. You can set a target for yourself. I'm going to volunteer for 6 months and learn all I can learn. While you are there, research, learn. Then you can now articulate how you want to come into the sector. If you want to look for jobs in the sector before you start, or whatever. But I think first, volunteer, research, learn, and articulate what you want to do. I think those are the first steps that you need to do.
Thank you
I hope
so
that helps.
much. Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Akpan. So you've really talked holistically about addressing gender-based violence in Nigeria. So can you give us your final thoughts on how we're addressing it and what we can do, and just moving forward?
I think a lot of people are not aware that there's a large number. And just I just need to make this point because we forget men. Men are being abused as well. Um, I was reading a post a while ago on social media about a man that was beaten up by the wife. And so many people came out were telling stories about similar. So if it's gender-based violence, it could be men. It's just that it's prevalently men abusing women, but there are men that are abused as well. Okay, but what I was going to say is that there are lots of women who are not mentally okay because of violence. We have a mental health crisis in this country, and we're not even looking at it. Therefore, I should do something on mental health. I think it's important. You see, abuse damages the person.
It does.
Abuse from when you are young determines the adult you'll be, whether you're
Yeah.
going to be a full functioning adult.
Mhm.
It determines whether you can have happiness in a marriage. It determines how you react to your co workers and to your friends.
Mm.
So somebody might have been raped when they were in secondary school, and you're now an adult in their 40s, but there are triggers that happen, and they just remember, and they get moody, they get difficult. They can't cope. Some of them even start taking drugs to cope.
Mhm. Yeah.
Self-medication.
Yeah.
I don't think that we know the consequence of abuse, or even a child that is abused. They grow up, it doesn't go away. Oh. It doesn't. I know so many children, I know so many women now who are abused as children. It doesn't go away.
It doesn't. Mm.
And it has implications on their mental health. Some women commit suicide because of abuse. And I just wanted to just, as my final thought, to say, this is not just hype. It's not just, gender-based violence is not just a buzzword we are using. It's real experience for many young girls and women. And it's damaging to their mental health. It's damaging to their relationships. And we need to take it serious. And whatever we can do to make it easier or to reduce gender-based violence, we should try to make that happen. And that's my commitment, and I pray it's everyone's commitment.
Thank you so much. This is extremely helpful, in terms of just addressing the issue of gender-based violence in Nigeria, as it is prevalent around the world. Thank you so much for all you do, Dr. Akpan and your team. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, FY. It was great to be here. Thank you.
Great having you. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So as you hear it, we heard from Dr. Uduak Akpan, the Executive Director of the Youth Alive Foundation, who is working on gender-based violence. Like I said, quick announcement, the Social Impact Masterclass is coming up very soon. There's a link in the description on this post. So if you want to be on the waiting list, please put your name down. It should be ready within the next week or so. I'm very excited. Our website, socialimpact.ng, is online, but we're still finalizing some of the content within the website, but it is ready and the course will be uploaded shortly. So those of you who want to be part of the beta launch, please put your name on the waiting list, and then we'll be happy to have you. Also, if you're interested in sponsoring a Devsectorseries episode, please send me a message on WhatsApp. My WhatsApp number is right on the link on the post. So if you're interested, you let us know. There is a rock bottom price so that you can continue to support to make this content grow and get to higher places, so that we're able to even continue to connect civil society with the public, to know what the civil society organizations are doing diligently to for national development. So again, thank you so much for joining us with Dr. Uduak Akpan, the Executive Director of the Youth Alive Foundation, addressing gender-based violence in Nigeria. Thank you so much for watching, and let us change the world together.